keep saying, Frank, that the team is more important than the idea, and we talked about this, but like you still have to have the sort of the
There's different
umbrella
phase.
of
The early
what you're gonna
stages, yeah.
work on.
No, I mean, I could be wrong. My thesis is the team is the most important at the early stage. And then the idea is the most important part of a late stage. So at the end of the day, you need both of them to be really good. But at the early day, but like the way you still demonstrate it is to say, let's assume you have an amazing idea and a shitty team. Your chances of executing on it are very low. But if you have a great team and a shitty idea, your chances of pivoting is very easy. So
Welcome to the Messy Middle. We're back here. This is another summer edition. We are all enjoying our summers at this point. And I think we have some exciting things to talk about today. Even though it is the middle of summer, I wanted to discuss the sort of the downturn in AI. And when we think about starting something, sometimes the best time is when people think that the bubble is over. And I want to get your guys' take on that. And we could sort of just go from there, because that in my mind is what's sticking out right now in sort of the world of AI, but also being in entrepreneurs in the messy middle is primarily like, hey, let's find when there's an angle that we can jump in.
So what you're saying is that AI is sort of like the hype is not there anymore, or
I'm
what's
just
your
saying, I mean,
observation?
the hype is definitely trending downward.
Yeah.
Could be a combination of all the changes happening in the election cycle with Kamala covering the news and sort of the global events happening. But also, like, you look at the stock market, was at the end of last week, there was a rotation out of AI stocks. And people are now like, oh, maybe it's not where it's at. And Frank and I were discussing this on our little road trip that we had over the last few days in a random location here somewhere in Europe. But I don't know, Frank, what do you think?
well, I mean, I don't think I think there's two subjects in the questions. One is what to do about downturns, and do you like that? And the other one is about is AI going down? There's been a correction in the market, but it's like 2% drop on Nvidia. It's not the end of the world. So it's like just a correction after the market went up. To me, AI is still undervalued largely. I believe it's going to be trillions of impact. So I don't see it into the bubble. People love to repeat history. I think people look at it and being like it's like the bubble in the 2000. But when you look at the multiples in 2000, it was crazy. It's like 200, 300, 400, something like that, and we're far, far away from these multiples. AI has real use. The truth is, right now, AI doesn't have like the crazy use we believe it can have one day. Replace people, have robots, self-driving cars. I think maybe the horizon on that is 10 years, and so we will go to this cycle. Then to answer the second questions, I think I've been to a couple of them, and I've learned my lesson, I guess, both on timing and both on what to do. But to me, it's always like phase one, which is you're a specialist in the domain. So for example, I was pretty good in programming, and I was pretty good at open source. When the web and Web 2.0 came, that was Team O'Reilly. And at first, as an engineer, I didn't see any business opportunities, because from a technical perspective, I was like, I didn't see how refreshing part of a web page was that much of a revolution. And then what happened is when you have these cycles, the people who are non-experts talks a lot about this great future they see and that you don't see. And then you smell the bullshit as an expert. And I guess that must be the feeling of many people who are domain experts in AI. When they see all these people who don't know shit about AI and just going to predict this amazing impact. But then there's phase three, which is this attracts capital. And the capital kind of moves the needle. And that was the same with, I saw that also with mobile. I used to be part of Apple Developer Conf, like the second one in San Francisco. And I think there were maybe 300 people. And out of these 300, I think there's like 50 VCs. And the VCs were pitching the developers about how much mobile is the future. And I kind of was the same. I was like, man, it's just an app. I don't see something special about it. Um, but anyway, my lesson is everybody's wrong. The domain experts estimate
So,
like the
so,
impact of capital.
so
And
would
just
you?
to finish on the people who are fueling the bubble underestimate, their capacity to build. And so to me as an entrepreneur, I love that phase because that's the phase where you know that you're not full of shit if you're good at it or you can assemble a good team. And so you see the opportunity and it's the hard part is how do you separate yourself from the bullshit, and execution is a big part on how to do that.
And do you think, do you think
I think we lost
we look
Teddy.
at some of these, he'll be back shortly. So,
Mm.
do you think, looking at sort of like the hype machine, the hype train, the boom and the bust, the bubble, looking at things like the metaverse or crypto, I
Yeah.
think those are different than AI. I think it's similar where you can enter into the markets, but I think it's also different. So,
No, I think
um,
there are bets on the future. Will the future have an electronic money? Yeah. Will the future have virtual presence? Yes. Will the
yep.
future have machine thinking better than today? Yes. So I think it's more of a debate about the when and the how fast.
And so
And
I was,
are people excited right now because that's what capitalism does, right? Capitalism is allocation towards the future, and so if you can be excited because you see the future right now and you believe, oh my God, this thing
hmm
is going to generate
hmm
trillions of dollars, then you invest now. But if the execution is 10 years, which is beyond, or 20 years, which is beyond the horizon of what capitalism can capture, then you get a crack, but the future will still happen. So I
yeah.
think the question of a bubble is not an issue for founders, it's more of an issue for investors.
Well, okay. I agree it's an issue for investors, but for founders, you only get one shot at picking what you can work on for the next few years during the bubble. I mean, one shot, you can always kill the idea, you can always pivot, but let's be real, you really only have one shot if you end up raising money. And why I want to go back to this investors point is because when we're actually on the road trip today, I read a little bit on Twitter. Um, Neil Khosla, Vinod's son, so Vinod Khosla, right, of course, um, of Khosla Ventures, but Sun Microsystems and Kleiner Perkins. Uh, he, Basically, he was like, look, you only have to be right a couple of times, but the reality is investing as a VC into tech entrepreneurship and for the power law is not thinking about all the things that could go wrong the thing. It's just believing that, yes, we're going to have electronic money one day.
Mm.
Yes, AI is going to be a tutor for
The
everyone
timing.
one day. Yeah, and like so as a VC, are you going to bet on a couple of founders doing that, or are you going to be so negative that you're not going to get anywhere with it? So, and I think that's why there's the outsized returns of the VCs in California versus the VCs really anywhere else in the world.
Yeah.
Um,
The rest of the world is
so it's
followers. California are like the
yeah,
leaders. The
yes,
But I guess I still believe like people invest in teams. The VC play is different. Again, VC. I mean, my point of view is that you don't necessarily need VC. Like, so to me, I always be like, I don't need to build a unicorn. I don't need to do that. Like, I'm not obsessed with building a unicorn. I'm just obsessed with can I build a product that makes sense, and then if I see an opportunity later that it can be a leak or a unicorn, that's great. But I'm more of a
Hmm.
classic take, which is, for if you try to engineer your startup towards building something that scale, I feel like it's a different process. I guess Bezos, for example, did that like as a business analyst, and he saw the growth of the internet, and he was like, I'm going to build something there. You still have to build the product. Luck is another one. So I don't know. There's so many factors. I guess it depends. Yes, if you're an entrepreneur, or if you're an investor. If you're an investor, and I want to invest more, but I have to follow my logic, and my logic would be I don't care about the idea. I would just invest in the team. But I could be wrong. But I'd like to really push this logic to the extreme, and uh, I think that might be the right way for the early stage. Honestly. Anyway, we diverged a little bit from the initial statement. So just to summarize, we talked about the bubble, like right, wrong, and I was saying like to me the bubble I think is more of an investor problem. I think for the
Yeah.
entrepreneurs, there's the opportunity of raising or not raising. There's the opportunity of crashing your company. So it's true that if you're venture backed, that's going to have a huge impact. But
Yeah.
I don't think you should be worrying or working too much on the timing. It's the same as investors, right? It's like you should never try to be selling when it's high and buying when it's low. It's never going to work. You have to, you kind of have to be disciplined. And so I guess the discipline of the founder is,
Yeah.
I mean, I loved AI before, and it's always I'm definitely frustrated by that because I love AI. I've worked on that thing 10 years ago, even more when I was a student. I know what I'm talking about. I build RNN. I'm not a super specialist of AI. I'm huge respect for people to do that. But damn it, like when I talk to people, I say I've been working on AI, and suddenly I'm with everybody who was working on crypto 6 months ago and became AI experts. It's really hard to be like, to feel like you're drawn into, you know, or yet another AI person. So it's just a little frustrating for me. So I like when the bubble bursts a little because then I come back at peace where I'm like, cool, like this now. Anyway.
Exactly. Yeah. That's definitely the best spot for me to be in when like everything kind of calms down and the noise is gone. I remember the days when OpenAI was releasing all of these new features and things. We were talking on the phone with both of you and just like,
2 weeks, I think. Yeah.
WTF just happened? Like, yeah, are we gonna build this? No, they're gonna put you out of business. So it was like really stressful. And to your point, Frank, used to build a lot of AI back in the day when we would just call it machine learning and not really having any like all of whatever,
was, like
GPT wasn't there.
No
like
really
I played with like natural language processing, all these models, and now it's there's no point of even there's no point of talking about it even. So as a founder, again, as an investor, I don't know, like, but as a founder, it's the best time to build. Everything is like, what's the word there? No one is rushing you. You don't compare to others. There's no new things coming up that can put you out of your like flow state. So you can just simply build. And
I can
market-wise, just this point about AI in general. I think it's way too early now, mainly because. So first, I want to say that market's gonna market anyways. It's speculation, it's news, it's politics. I don't think it's related to where the AI is going. It's trying to value it and put a price on it, but the reality is you should talk to people that are going to be users of this AI thing. And right now I'm a user of some part of it. Like I use ChatGPT as a junior developer for some of the tasks, and I'm getting so much more done than working with a human being. And I talk to my developer friends, and they are all aware of ChatGPT, but no one is using it.
Mm-hmm.
And in my mind is, okay, it's like, it's hype. Everyone knows about ChatGPT. Everyone uses it, or not just ChatGPT, all these other tools. But it turns out that people are aware of it, but they don't use it. So imagine if like the average person familiarized with these concepts.
My mom uses it. So my mom uses it, and then in France,
she doesn't use it to code.
She doesn't use it to code, but she uses it to help with emails, board emails. Like it's like crazy. She just drops it in. My wife uses it to check translations, and then I've been using it here on the trip in Europe, taking photos of menus, and it's been amazing because like it actually, like in Vienna, it's been fantastic, and France has been really good. So
my favorite use case is just putting any type of text and being like, typo, grammar, check this text. That's like the default. And I don't know, if I scroll through my ChatGPT history, like every third prompt is related to that.
It's crazy.
So
we pay $20 a month for that bullshit.
Yeah, but we used to pay $20 for Grammarly, for example, for like much less of a functionality.
It's funny you said bullshit.
So,
like,
my point is that
I find it an amazing deal. Like to me, $20 for that is just amazing.
Yeah,
to me, it's worth $10,000.
It is amazing. It replaces 10 junior developers for me that I would otherwise need to spend time with, talk to, and everything.
Yeah, I mean, to me, for example, I use it a lot for learning. So anytime I see a subject I don't comprehend, and a lot of them are in AI, so it's kind of recursive.
Yeah.
Like I'm gonna see a tweet with like formulas and be like some new term I've never heard of about like a new way to do some kind of backpropagation or whatever, and then I'm like, I don't understand this mathematical concept, or I don't understand what this research paper is about. And within 5 minutes, I understand it really fast. I'm like, this is amazing. Like I also see that I love watching videos on YouTube for learning stuff. And I see videos on physics, on AI, with 10 millions or 20 or 30 millions of views. And I'm like, that's insane. There's like 30 million people, 40 million people watching really, really advanced things in AI. And I'm like, I'm not sure what it means, but at least it means there's millions of people working in this thing deeply. And on one hand, I'm like, it's competition, or maybe it's like a little freaking out. But on the other hand, I'm like, this is great. Like the world is moving really, really fast.
Yeah.
And back to what you were saying before, at the end of the day, what I observe is it's easy to talk about things, but the number of people who are going to wake up in the morning being, I'm going to launch a startup that's going to do AI stuff and it's going to build it, like very fast, it becomes a very small world. There's a gigantic attrition rate between talking about it, talking about the hype and being excited about the hype, and building something. And I would say it's one over 1,000 attrition rate.
Oh yeah, and then all the steps involved in getting to a specific point as a startup, like building product, validating customers. It's a lot of other things.
And at first you feel
so
them,
just,
right? It's like
the lesson is just to like remove yourself from that hype and just forget about it. It doesn't exist. Otherwise, you're gonna lose your mind.
Go.
So, just go. Oh. Fuck you, Gabriel. Just go. When I was doing this stuff during the gamma days in crypto, it was all super hype, and the bubble burst. And it was so nice when the bubble burst for us to focus on getting our product out. And it was the lowest of low of Ethereum prices. I think Ethereum was $80. Maybe it went up to 106. And we launched the product, and we ended up with 1 million users right before we closed the deal of selling, right? And I think what's important there is I said, let's put our blinders on. Who cares about the crypto markets? Who cares about everybody dying? Or, because for many months we were just thinking about everybody's raised so much more money than us. And they did. And I said, well, the only thing that we can control is our product and our community and getting something out there and actually building something. So, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, but we can't control the way the market reacts. It's also the same thing with the SPAC, right? So the SPAC, I had no control of the global, sort of inflation, the rise of, the rising interest rates or anything else, because we already put the SPAC out, right? I could have decided not to do it, but I had no control of those external things. And I said, let me just focus on getting a deal done. And then we realized when we couldn't get a deal done, let me sell the thing. So I think that's like a big, and how this kind of fits in with the messy middle, which is like focus on yourself and focus on
things that you can
the things that they can control. And if you're excited about AI and now it's no longer the exciting thing because maybe the bubble is popping a little bit, a 2% change, which is not, I agree with Frank, it's not. There's going to be a shit ton of money going into startups in AI this quarter and all of next year because VCs want to get paid and LPs, again, are...
Yeah, and it's also a classical mistake, right, which is to focus on the technology. That's a big classic. Like you don't want to build a startup in AI or a startup in blockchain or a startup in VR.
Focus on the problem.
And that makes you more at peace. So, for example, like the one we're talking to with Teddy right now is about how do we reduce the barrier of language and distance. And the reason I like that is because it forces you to use these things as tools. And it poses the problem that needs to be solved. And I think that brings peace as experienced founders. When you're like, the technology doesn't matter. If blockchain is useful for that, we'll use blockchain. If AI is useful for that, we'll use AI. If VR is useful for that, we can use VR. But again, like it's always going to happen that people are going to be just building a startup in AI because they'll get funded because some VC in France is going to get money from the government to invest in AI because some politicians want to be able to show more investment for whatever reasons. And the person might make an exit and do great startups and then come back later and give advice about how to do a startup. So I could be wrong, but to me, I still believe that the right way is just, the technology as a tool. And if you're really, really good at technology, then you can build amazing tools.
Keep saying, Frank, that the team is more important than the idea, and we talked about this, but like you still have to have the sort of the umbrella of what you're gonna work on.
No, I mean, I could be wrong. My thesis is the team is the most important at the early stage, and then the idea is the most important part of a late stage. So at the end of the day, you need both of them to be really good. But at the early day, but like the way I used to demonstrate it is to say, let's assume you have an amazing idea and a shitty team. Your chances of executing on it are very low. But if you have a great team and a shitty idea, your chances of pivoting is very easy. So it's an easy demonstration to demonstrate that the team is the most important. And vice versa. If you're a 10,000 people company, and you fire 2,000 people and you get the best people, but you pick the wrong thing to build, like I don't know, like the wrong type of rocket, then you're fucked. So it's a funny thing. And then there's the in-between to me, which is the scale up when you need both of them to be really good to survive. So that's my rationale for demonstrating why the team matters more. But after that, it's more complex, of course, because you cannot get a great team if you have a shitty idea. So anyway, of course, there's a couple of interactions. But anyway, the other thing I'm thinking of is aging. I guess as you're in between, getting in my mid-40s, I'm still excited about entrepreneurship. I always thought that my goal in life would be to keep building startups when I'm 100 years old or 90 years old. And the thing I like about business in general is age doesn't matter. If you have a good product, people should buy it. And I'm thinking more and more that the people will matter less. I mean, I can imagine investing without even meaning who are the people. You can use so much VR and alternate. People will have no idea if you're a man, a woman, old, young. There's going to be a lot of. That's going to be super exciting. That these barriers will just be hidden by our avatars. Is kind of how I see the future too. Sorry, I'm kind of diverging out of the present, but trying to see what's going to happen when AI, blockchain, VR, AR, medicine, genetics, all these things are going to advance in 10, 20 years. Like the way we do entrepreneurship will evolve with it.
Yeah. I guess.
Or you can be 12 years old and raise 10 million.
I want to kind of think about this a little bit more, and
we can do a subject that could be our next podcast. I feel like we can do one on that.
What as we all age, what do we see will change?
I mean, you're experienced founder, you're a post-exit founder. You've done 10 years of startup, which means it's like you took 30 years of your life. It's like we're already 100 years old. It's
like 15 years of startups. It's been 15, Frank.
Yeah.
I'm 35
but you have to
last
multiply
week.
by 10.
That's 100 years in doc years.
It's like being it's like it ages you very fast, and so it's like you play the game differently. VC will likely less invest in you if you're too old. Like it's all these things.
Perhaps it'll be a poor career choice to pick entrepreneurship in the future, because once people matter less, we can just focus on AI.
If we get there at one point, I guess maybe our future CEO will be, and investors will be AI. It'll be funny.
I don't know if it'd be funny. It would just be kind of unfortunate because they're just going to be way more efficient than us, and they're going to say, "Look, it's okay. You can take your summer break."
They'll be like, "Today I read 50 million, pages of research paper for the past 10 years, and I see these 5 opportunities right now because of what's happening in this village, and I'm going to put $2 million on that, and it's going to be great." I'll be like, but then do that in a fraction of a second.
That's completely real, possible future.
I mean, again, I think the best profession we can do is to train ourselves to become plumber.
We certainly need one. I could say, okay, right now, 100%. I need a plumber in Florida for our shower and for our water spigot out front to turn it off. And then, in France, we need a plumber here. So
unless I mean, I'm talking about the next bubble. The bubble also impacted me. Like, of course, I'm so excited about robotics, and been for years. And next year is going to be the year of robotics. And next year we'll be talking about robotics a lot. And it's going to be, oh my God, there's a robotic bubble. Like, is it true? And you have some shitty robot will be able to do. They'll be like, oh my God, look, it moved his hands. And but yeah, it's
pass the butter.
That's the next bubble.
Yeah,
I just thought that.
Okay. Cool. So we wanted to keep this one short because it's still the summer. Who's got the quote?
Who's the most inspired?
Oh,
I mean, Frank is always the most inspired.
Yeah, the quote, but I forgot who it came from. I didn't even know the quote. Am I inspired? I can maybe find
Just
a quote. Hold
generate
on.
something in
I'll,
your
I'll,
mind.
I'll find one. I got a book. Let's see. It's from Charles de Gaulle.
Hmm.
Okay, let's
Actually,
go.
you should have a quote. You're reading about Winston Churchill.
I do have a Winston Churchill quote, but it's a Lloyd George quote. So, who is so it's don't be afraid to take a big step if one is indicated.
Okay.
You can't cross a chasm in two small jumps. A young man who is so there you go.
I've got.
Okay.
The further on, it kept going.
Keep reading. Keep reading.
I can give you two quotes. I think they're related, and I've learned that quote today from Benjamin Franklin. Oh, sorry, go.
Yeah, but this quote is probably not a good one. It says, "A young man who isn't a socialist hasn't got a heart. An old man who's a socialist hasn't got a head."
Yeah, that's true. Of course, it's a classic. Of course, I totally
it's a
agree.
classic, but it's a young man. It's basically in the States is if you're young and democratic, one day you'll be old and Republican.
It's not in the States. We're in French. In the French, it's the same thing. No, to me, my quote. I would have two quotes, and they're both the same, and they both relate to entrepreneurship, even though they were inspired by war. The first one was it's not really an indirect quote by Benjamin Franklin when he was in France during the Revolution, and the people were asking him, "How is it going? How's the independence war going?" And his French was poor, but he did his best, and so he said, "Ça ira, ça ira," which means it's going to be okay, which ended up inspiring a very bloody song in French, which was presented at the Olympic Games about a revolutionary song. But it was just being like, it's okay. Well, the world will be all right. And then another quote by de Gaulle, which says, the end of hope is the beginning of death. And to me, they're both linked. And as an entrepreneur, you have to be optimistic. At the same time, it's funny. I keep seeing Paul Graham before we do this thing, but he was talking about how much all the founders he meet tell him how difficult it is. And so he was saying, it's a classic, right? It's like everybody says it's luck and blah, blah, even though it's technically luck. You don't see all the shit. Like you don't see the startups. All of them are constantly dying the next day. And on paper, it looks like an amazing startup that never dies and everything's okay. The truth is none of them are okay. All of them are about to die. And there's no founders who, sleeps well. But you have to have hope. And I keep thinking about that. Sometimes you might get lost into the haystack of shit you have to deal with. But you want to go back to that, like hope. It's like there's, as you said, Gabriel, before when you invest, it's not about everything that can go wrong. It's about what if it goes well. So anyway, let's focus on that light.
Love it. Okay, so next week.
Next week.
Bye.
Bye.